Hello, my name is Marc from JazzGuitarLessons.net, and today's jazz guitar tip is soloing on chord changes part 1. And we'll be looking at using one-octave fingerings, which is just a principle. In fact, when we improvise in jazz, we want to improvise melodic lines over chord changes. And what I want to do in the 3 parts, this is part 1 today, I want to convince you that you don't need a whole bunch of fancy scales and arpeggios and licks and crazy stuff in jazz to make it sound good. So one-octave fingerings, you mean, people will say you mean like West, right? And it's not what I mean at all by octave. I mean, we will focus on fingerings that cover the span of the distance of an octave, which is a musical distance between, say, the note C, Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do. Between the C and the next C, that's 1 octave distance. If you look at it on the piano, it's the time it takes for a note to repeat itself until the next one, right? So 1 octave fingerings on the guitar, why we're doing them, so we focus on the distance between a note and until it repeats itself. We do it because we solve the problem of having too much information and overgeneralizing. So looking at a sheet of paper, like I see this on Twitter sometimes, here's this week's lesson, guys. Get a sheet of PDF with all the dots on the fretboard for Phrygian mode and say, oh, if I play within that, you're going to be in Phrygian. Well, it's not the entire truth. Like if you want to solo over chord change, you need much more than just dots on the fretboard, right? And it's easier to memorize things when they're only on 1 octave, like scales, licks, and arpeggios, etc. And if you play on 1 octave, you have to know what you're playing, and we'll talk about this on the next slide, of course. And by having less notes to deal with and less of visual patterns, you connect more easily with your ears and to the chord changes that you're playing over, of course. So what we'll be doing is we think of 1 octave as being a constraint for you to play in or to play with. So a constraint, yeah, I mean, if you look at this piano, you see the notes starting from C, going up until B, you have 12 notes, and you have to be conscious that those 12 notes are the entire musical universe. Say you start at fret 0 and you go up until fret 12 on any one string, you have the 12 notes. So every major scale is in there, the chromatic scale is in there, the diminished scale is in there, every chord, every arpeggio, anything that you can come up or that has been written in Western music, I mean, not quarter tones and Indian music and stuff like that, but regular American music, everything can be played in there. So why not start there when you learn to play on chord changes, right? So how we're going to do it today is simply using what you already know. Basically, you go on, you say, hey, I know the major scale, but you don't fall in the trap of, I know the major scale, and I go, okay, so this is my students, they come to me and they go, yeah, I know the major scale. This is the major scale. I'm like, no, this is not the major scale. Major scale is 7 notes, and you need to know what they are, not just look at them visually on the fretboard, right? So it's what we're going to do. One example of the C major scale today, which is in the position I call 5-2. So let's just play it together. Those 7 notes, you ready? 3 and 4 and... You see, really that's all there is to it. There's no... The C major scale can be extended and you can build a symphony with that. But in the end, you need to know that there are 7 notes and you need to, in a certain way, know their role. So if you're curious about this, of course, you can always look at Painless Scale Position, which is an online course that I've devised myself. It's 2.5 hours and more of videos, assignments for you to work on with PDFs, and indeed, we work on 1 octave scales at first, and go on to outline the 2-5-1 with scales, modes, arpeggios, and chords. And this goes for all levels, and goes without saying. It's a course that's been online for a few years now, and it's great for you to actually learn to improvise on chord changes and start with 1 octave scales at first. So for next time, until next time, also, yeah, there's a lot of reviews, and it's very well rated on the Udemy platform. For next time, we have more tips coming up. So in part 2, we're going to look at how to use this knowledge of 1 octave fingering and actually use this on the 2-5-1 for real. But for today, that's it. What I encourage you to do until next time is see if you can break down your own stuff, the scales that you already know, the arpeggios you know, the licks you know, and identify the musical material. For instance, if you know the C major scale, you know a scale shape on the guitar, see if you can identify where the root is, or the fundamental, the tonic of the scale, right? And if you're a more advanced player, you can identify scale degrees, or perhaps sing and say, oh, this is the 5th, this is the 7th, this is the 5, on still everything that you know, including tunes. All right, so until next time, I'm Marc from jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. Practice well and have fun. Bye.